How to build bigger quads using science. Here's a step-by-step process on building your quads. Initially, you need to understand the anatomy. First of all, it's called quadriceps, which means that it's made up of 4 muscles. Those 4 muscles are the vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, and rectus femoris. Now, 3 out of those 4 muscles attach only to your knee. So the vastus medialis, lateralis, and intermedius attach only to your knee joint. So they have a function only at your knee. Whereas the rectus femoris, or rec-FM, attaches to your knee and your hip joint. So it's the only biarticular muscle in the quadriceps, which means that it's the only muscle that crosses both the hip and the knee joints and therefore has a function at both. Now, a question we need to ask ourselves when understanding the function of our quadriceps is, what will happen if I contract this muscle? Or an easier question is, what exercises do I do in the gym to train my quads? If you think of it, you realize that you have only 2 movements that you can do for your quads. One is the leg extension, and 2 is the leg press, squats, hack squats, or any squat-based exercise. So basically, you can either squat or do a leg extension to train your quadriceps. So if we look at the first exercise, which is leg extensions, the function is basically getting your knee straight from a bent position, also known as knee extension. So the first function of our quadriceps is knee extension. Now, because our quads also have one muscle that attaches to the hip joint, which is the rectus femoris, that means there is also a function to be done at the hips. The movement, when we do a squat, for example, is hip flexion. So the function of our quads are knee extension and hip flexion. Hip flexion basically means that you're flexing your hip, or in other words, getting your knee closer to your chest. So think of the end range of a squat. At the bottom of a squat, you are in a fully flexed hip position. That's the function of our quadriceps. Now, in order to add size to our quads, we need to train our quads throughout all its ranges of motion, in the shortened position and in the lengthened position. As we discussed, in the shortened position, usually when the quads contract, it's going to extend the knee. So the leg extension is the only exercise where you can train your quads in a fully contracted or fully shortened position. Whereas in order to train your quads in a fully lengthened position, you need to think of completely flexing your knee, which is the opposite of a knee extension. So think of getting your hamstrings and calves as close as possible to each other, like at the bottom of a squat or a pendulum squat or a hack squat. Whereas in order to lengthen your quadriceps, you need to try to get your hamstrings and calves as close as possible to each other, also known as knee flexion, which is the complete opposite of a knee extension. Exercises that will lead to the full knee flexion. For example, pendulum squats, hack squats, or if you've got good ankle and hip mobility, barbell back squats. So before training your quads, make sure you understand your quad's anatomy, the function that it does, and also the exercises that will achieve the following functions.